Today we're going to talk about the iPhone tracking software that we discovered hidden on the phones, and how we found it and what we think it means.
Yep.
So we were looking for things to visualize.
Yeah, we just finished doing some visualizations of the Fukushima accident, and we were looking for cool stuff to do, I guess. We'd just gone to the Strata conference, of course, and a couple of months back, and something Toby said during one of the keynotes in the morning had kicked off a train of thought for me, which was mobile data, which is, what are you carrying around in your phone that we don't already know about? And I know you had similar.
Yeah, like I've been looking at like contacts, how you could visualize contacts, how you could visualize your friends on Twitter, how you could visualize your your face. I've done various different interactive maps, so I was pretty curious to see if any of your contact information was accessible on your phone to do an easy visualization like that.
So of course under iOS that's not programmatically accessible on the device because of the sandboxing. So I started poking around inside the backups on the Mac, and I actually stumbled across a directory called that's actually named Location D. And I thought, well, that looks interesting. So I had to poke around in there, and I came across something called consolidated.db, which was full of latitudes and longitudes and timestamps and cell IDs.
And was just a plain SQLite file.
Plain SQLite file, yeah.
And of course, the interesting thing about the backups is that you don't get to see the file names.
Yeah.
Just by default, you actually have to do a little bit of digging.
Yeah, there's a manifest file in each of your backups that basically will tell you the translation between the 40-digit hex string, which is what all the files are digitized to, and the actual file name on the device.
Right.
So we parsed out the manifest file and had a look through this, and it was interesting stuff. And I thought, well, that's going to look quite good on a map. We'll plot it up.
And the initial thought was, maybe this is just a couple of days worth of data. This is just a cache showing a little bit of data, and we might be able to show something interesting on a map.
Yeah, maybe combine it with like the recent voicemails or
your Flickr photos.
Oh, the Flickr photos. Yeah. And it turned out to be pretty much a year's worth of data for every cell that we've been through since we upgraded to iOS 4. Yeah,
so that was, we started off, you found this, you let me know, we both started looking at it in the database view. We realized how much,
actually, let's go ahead and open that file.
Yeah, that would be a good point to open up the database here and just...
So this is the consolidated DB file here, and as you can see, you've got a whole bunch of tables inside it. You've got CDMA tables, and you also have straight cell tables. And there's also some Wi-Fi information and various other things. So the main table we're looking at here is the cell location table, and if we look at the schema, we have the MCC, MNC, LAC, and CI, which will tell you the operator and country code of you're actually using, and also the cell ID of the actual specific cell. And then there's the timestamp and a latitude and longitude. There's also a horizontal accuracy, which I haven't quite figured out what exactly it means, and the rest of these seem to be default figures. I don't think any of them have any information in. So we actually go to the data. You can see that down here there's 28,138 rows in this table. And that basically spreads through about 293 days, which is pretty much the entire time I've been on iOS 4.
So it's about, what's that, about 100 points an hour, 100 points a day?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's quite a lot of data there.
And of course, the thing that startled me was the fact that this has survived through multiple devices. My original iOS 4 device was an iPhone 3GS. And I've had two iPhone 4s since then because I dropped one in the concrete a couple of weeks back. So this database actually persists through backup restores of your backup.
And the other thing we didn't, the thing that we didn't actually plot, but that was also interesting, was if you go down to the Wi-Fi.
Ah, yes.
Because while the accuracy of these positions doesn't seem to be nearly as good, if you look down at the bottom, you can see there's almost 220,000 data points that have been gathered with timestamps and the IDs of the Wi-Fi networks.
Yep.
And the estimated lat longs.
Yep. So you've actually got in the first column here the MAC address of the Wi-Fi access point, along with timestamps and the latitude and longitude. The latitude and longitudes aren't particularly accurate. I mean, I know apparently I've been in South America quite a lot over the last year, and it's certainly news to me, and I'm sure it'll be news to many people that know me.
Yeah, I did try visualizing this briefly, and then decided that it was so full of bogus locations.
You ended up in Florida, didn't you?
Yes,
yeah.
Which I've always wanted to go to Florida.
Well, there we go. So I figure that either it's in the DB wrongly, as in because whatever DB they look up for the triangulation, it's like the Wi-Fi access point has moved, which would be all right for the Florida one, but it doesn't actually. I don't understand the South America one at that point.
But it still has the ID of the Wi-Fi network, which is pretty,
yes,
identifiable information. So
there's also a couple of other interesting things in here. There's the Compass Calibration Database, which has timestamps and measurements of the local magnetic field, which I think is pretty cool as a physicist.
Oh yeah.
And also the magnitude and inclination of the field. So this will actually give away every time you fire up a map application, because it's going to use the GPS.
Yeah.
Or whether you're using the compass to do the where it gives a little cone.
Yeah.
Where you can rotate it round.
So every time you were lost.
Yeah.
I hadn't thought of that. That's a
we should add that to the application.
There you go.
There we go. There's other couple of things in here. There's I know one of the interesting things about iOS 4 is the geofencing capabilities. This is actually blank because I've never run any apps that actually have any geofencing capabilities. But presumably what's going to be in this database is the squares that you tell the apps that do geofencing that you want to be notified about.
Right. So this all looks like it's related to the whole general geo capabilities that they put into iOS 4.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's definitely got something to do with the background location stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, you noticed the timing of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I have 293 days of cell ID data, and the release of iOS 4 was 299, 300 days ago or something like that. And the gap is just about the time when I was just about to fly out to OzCon to do Sensors Masterclass for O'Reilly just before OzCon.
Right.
So I decided to get all my devices upgraded to iOS 4, upgrade everything, get the computer all ready to go. And I actually reinstalled iOS 4 at that point once. I took a week's worth of, I ran with it for a week and then reinstalled it.
Ah, okay.
Which is where the missing 7 days are.
Yeah, and I actually only have about 7 months because I was a very, very late upgrader.
That's not very geeky of you.
Yeah, but I have 33,000 points in my cell location, so I beat you on that.
Okay, that's fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. So maybe we should take a look at the application.
Yeah, so we were looking at this, and obviously the next question was, okay, how do we understand more about this data? And the best way to understand it is to visualize it. So
the thing we're using for visualization is your Open Heat Map service. So why don't you say a word about that?
So yeah, what we actually first ended up doing was taking a spreadsheet that you'd actually saved out from the database.
Yes.
And just as a quick prototyping tool, we took the spreadsheet and uploaded it to the OpenHeatMap website just to see what the data looked like. And
yeah, because of course I took out all the timestamps from this thing because I wasn't going to mail what was it, 29,000 cell IDs with timestamps across the internet to Pete. So I actually took the timestamps out and just mailed you the lat and long.
Yeah, and we were able to throw that up and get a map out of that pretty quickly, and it showed us that there was a lot of data there, and it seemed to match, your movements.
Yeah, I mean, I could pretty much identify, that would belong to this trip and that belonged to this trip.
And so at that point, it was a case of, okay, how do we build something that makes it easy to reproduce this as a desktop app on anybody else's machine.
Yeah.
And so what I actually did for that was, because I already had a web component that was able to visualize this data on a map, I created a pretty simple Cocoa app that had a single web view in it and populated it with the jQuery OpenHeatMap component, and then wrote some code to look through your backups, the backups directory of whichever machine.
We actually found a Python script on Stack Overflow.
That's right. We started off with the Python script, which was that was actually what you used to explore the data originally, of course. And that was actually the hardest part of the whole thing from my side was porting.
The hardest part from my side was trying to remember how to write a desktop app.
Yes. Yeah. Well, that's why I got a web view in there as quickly as possible. Yeah.
So anyway, this is the source code of the application here. I mean, you can see that this is this third-party library pulled in to parse the SQLite stuff.
I know. I should have read your book.
Yeah, it's in the book how to do it. And then you also stuffed everything into the app delegates, and I'm not even going to go there.
I got this done in under 24 hours.
You did get this done in under 24 hours. We went from absolutely nothing to having a fully working desktop app that parsed the backup files in under 24 hours. So I'm going to give you some slack.
Thank you.
Here's the fatal file to parse the manifest DB file. And for those of you interested, here's the Stack Overflow question that gives you the original Python script. So why don't we fire this up?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
We can actually have a look at some of your data.
Yeah. Okay. So we have the application up here, and you can see that I've spent a lot of time in the UK, which is pretty predictable since I happen to live in the UK. But I've also spent a lot of time on the east coast and west coast of the States, and those little red dots in the middle there are where I transfer planes. It was quite noticeable that you fly coast to coast direct,
yeah,
and I fly in and transfer the plane in Chicago or Denver.
Yeah, I noticed that.
Yeah.
But you can still. I'll have to. If you look at some of the screenshots, you can actually see some of my cross-country road trips.
That's true. Yeah. But so let's zoom in on one of the ones we used on the website, shall we? Shall we zoom in on this?
Yeah.
Which is quite a nice trip. Shows some of the capabilities. So this is a trip I took not long after I upgraded to iOS 4, in fact. It was just after OzCon. I'd finished the masterclass for O'Reilly. I'd gone to OzCon in Portland. I'd actually flown out to DC to visit with Brian Jeffson, my editor at O'Reilly. And we took a day trip up to New York to go and see some of the Make guys.
Yeah.
And we actually took the Amtrak up, and you can see here this is actually the Amtrak route from Washington DC all the way up to New York.
So it looked like you took lots of little side trips very quickly.
Yeah, that's an interesting artifact in the data, and I'm not really sure why that's happening. My guess at this point is it's just to do with line of sight issues.
That was because I remember before I had a GPS iPhone,
Mm-hmm.
I would, when it was using the cell triangulation, which is my best guess what it's doing here,
Sure.
Every now and again you'd end up with a wildly inaccurate reading. But you can see the overall picture is pretty clear.
Yeah, I mean, it generates a loci of positions, right?
Yeah.
So that the actual any position at any one time might not be correct, but over the longer course, over
if
a
you take 5 minutes,
5 minute or 10 minute bin time,
yeah,
you'll get a number of positions up, and
they'll converge.
They will converge on a reasonable sort of loci. Yeah. So if I can remember, let's drag this back. There we go. Right. So let's just drag this into the right place.
To where you fly in.
Here we go. Okay, so let's start play there. So this is me flying into Washington National, and I spend about a day in Washington
and then
before taking the Amtrak up. And you see, we go up through Baltimore and then up through follow the line actually up here.
Oh yeah.
You can actually see it on the map, in fact. And you can see there's a couple of places where it does have bad position fixes there, like the little splatter of points surrounding.
Do you remember if that was particularly hilly or?
No, I don't actually.
Yeah, that's interesting to.
Yeah, to see it just splatting.
Because one of the things I have noticed is that.
And this is me coming into Manhattan now and spending about a day in Manhattan.
Because it seems like in...
And now this is interesting. It jumps on the way back. There's not as many sample points. And I'm trying to figure out whether this is to do with the fact that there just wasn't any signal that time.
Yeah.
Or whether I just used my phone less. Because I think it has to...
There's something that triggers it. There's definitely like it
Yes.
comes in batchy bursts.
It's definitely not every single cell I've ever walked through in the last year.
Yeah.
In this log.
But there does seem, like I've noticed when I look at sort of my travels around urban areas, I'll quite often see quite a detailed picture of, walking around London or something like that in some cases. And I've been trying to figure out if it's catching me when I switch cell zones or...
Yeah, I mean, that was one of my initial guesses. I mean, I think the other thing is it might be SMS or calls or...
Yeah,
or data, so, if you're actually doing something with the phone the first time it hits up a new cell or something.
Yeah, there's definitely some pattern to it that we haven't figured out.
Yeah.
But hopefully will.
Yeah. So that was one of my more interesting visualizations, because it was a discrete couple of days of trip, I think.
Yeah, and that, it really shows your progress across the whole trip. It's very easy to follow what you were actually doing and
I think it proves, or rather points out exactly that such a thing's possible, that you can track progress from this database.
Yeah. And that kind of leads on to so what
why did they do this?
Well, yeah, why did they do this, and sort of what's the bigger picture here?
No, I mean, certainly I think it has to be something to do with the background location stuff they've introduced in IS4 and the geofencing stuff.
Yeah, the fact that it's got fencing in there.
Yeah. But why they need the whole history?
And the fact that they're storing this history in a plain file sitting on everybody's hard drive.
So what you have to be aware, of course, is that the cell operators themselves, your cell provider, has all this information.
But in order to get hold of it, you actually have to get a court order.
Yep.
Or you have to go to some extreme lengths to get that information from the cell provider.
Yes.
What has happened here on the iPhone is that this data has been recorded without asking your permission and been left in a...
Well, to be fair, I don't know, is it without your permission? I mean...
Well, I was never asked.
Okay, I suppose so. I mean, you're asked for the GPS positions, but then this is cell IDs, so yeah, I suppose that is different, isn't it?
Yeah, and if it was kind of accidentally gathering this as part of some other operations, but the fact that it's explicitly gathering lat longs.
It's explicitly gathering the lat longs, and of course it's persistent on the phone. If you lose your phone, then all your movements for the last year are on that phone and can be taken off. I mean, if you jailbreak the device, you can have direct access to the file system, so you can go directly in and grab this file directly off the file system with a jailbroken device, which is not good.
Yeah, I mean, I was just, I love Apple. I've worked there for 5 years. I love the company. I was just pretty sad when I discovered that this was how they were handling my location data. It just bummed me out, really.
Yeah, I mean, the fact that it's sitting there unencrypted is not good. The fact that it's sitting there in the backups unencrypted is not good.
And the fact that that this historical data is being stored so explicitly without any, user intervention. There's...
And I mean, as far as I can see, there's no way to delete it.
Yeah, exactly. It just feels like it's a really bad way to handle this data.
Yeah.
I mean, I want to see innovation. I want to see cool stuff done around location. But
yeah, I mean, I certainly it's a great data set, and it's something I am now going to take off and treasure.
Yeah.
And I'm going to be very careful upgrading my operating system so I can keep this capability.
Yeah.
Because I'm a geek and I like this sort of thing. But I want to be what's the informed?
Yeah, informed consent to this.
Informed consent. So, I mean, certainly if you're worried about this, the first thing I'd do is go and encrypt your backups inside iTunes.
Yeah.
That's the first step.
And we should emphasize there's no, there's no immediate harm that's going to come to this.
There's absolutely no evidence that this data has left your custody, or like the custody of the phone or the laptop itself.
Yeah.
So there's no reason to suspect this data has left your person.
Yeah. So don't panic.
No.
But we do want to know more about what's happening with this data.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be good to know more about exactly what the data is and what it's intended for.
Yeah.
And why basically it's been captured, I guess.